So on Friday's show, apparently I was guilty of premature evaluation. I hear they have a pill for that now. Here's what happened. ABC News reporter Brian Ross released a story claiming that when Trump was a candidate, he told Michael Flynn to contact the Russians. Ross later corrected himself, saying it was actually when Trump was president-elect. Now, Brian has been suspended for a month. And, Sonny, you have a statement from ABC News. Let's hear that.
Yes. ABC News says, "We deeply regret and apologize for the serious error we made yesterday. The reporting conveyed by Brian Ross during the special report had not been fully vetted through our editorial standards process. As a result of our continued reporting over the next several hours, ultimately we determined the information was wrong, and we corrected the mistake on air and online. It is vital we get the story right and retain the trust we have built with our audience. These are our core principles. We fell far short of that yesterday. Effective immediately, Brian Ross will be suspended for 4 weeks without pay."
Okay, that's ABC's statement. Brian Ross has released a statement also on Sunday. He said, "My job is to hold people accountable, and that's what I agree with, being held accountable myself." And that's why I agree with being held accountable myself. Yeah. So he has basically, I mean, I would say that this is people are slamming this as fake news. But to me, it's a mistake. It's not he didn't deliberately put out a false piece of information. Yeah. He made an error. What do you girls think?
It was a significant error, though, and I think journalists have to be, given the climate, very, very careful with their reporting. It's not important to be first, or first, rather, it's important to be right, and he was wrong, and he's paying the price for that.
Especially in the climate right now with the president administration, sometimes he has a bit of a precarious relationship with facts, and we hold him to what he would describe as hyperbole or exaggeration. So with that said, it's almost like if journalists normally get 2 sources, they should have 3 sources now, because I think otherwise it feeds into a narrative of calling it fake news. Although I know we said in the meeting, I do think fake news is the intention. It's putting out a story with the intention to mislead. I think this was a big mistake.
Well, look, I think it's a learning moment for all of us and for America. We've got to have patience, and we've got to treat this issue with great seriousness. It is a serious issue. It's about national security. It's about the integrity of our democracy and elections. We've got to be serious about it. We've got to be deliberate about it. As far as Brian Ross and what happened here, you know, he clearly made a mistake. He's paying the consequences for that mistake. Yeah. And I think it's a good standard. Now, it's the same standard I'd like to hold the President of the United States to.
Good luck.
I think that, you know, Brian Ross was not trying to lie. No. He made a mistake. Yeah. Grave consequences, grave mistake, paying the consequences. The President of the United States embellishes, exaggerates, and lies habitually. And who's holding him accountable?
A lot of things to say about this. When it happened in real time, I think everyone who was watching the show could see my discomfort at the room erupting like the Dodgers had just won the World Series. Because I do think holding people to both standards, I remember when Obama was in office, Rush Limbaugh saying, "I want my president to fail," and coming out and saying, "I could never get behind that because if our president fails, it means America fails." I feel the same way about Trump. I think if we're celebrating a breach of national security, something that is so egregious that I said this on Friday, it's going to tear our country apart, there's no need to be cheering and celebrating, to each their own, whatever. I will say on the fake news note of this, I went to a Christmas party over the weekend. It's no secret, most of my friends are in conservative media. I feel a lot like I'm an astronaut from a different planet, come here to try and explain both worlds to each other. That's how different I feel on this show sometimes.
Well, as long as your oxygen doesn't run out, you're good.
Yes, exactly. And I will say that fake news and what we did on Friday, that's what I was being accused of being a part of. And I don't want to sit on a show where I feel like we're giving fake news or reacting irresponsibly, because the cut and short of it is, no matter what happens, and by the way, I think this is far from over, but we should take the information that we have and take it in time and explain it to people, because having one piece of information, which ended up being fake news, in my opinion, it doesn't mean that an impeachment trial will start this evening.
Do you believe that Brian Ross deliberately did that and put it out as fake news?
I don't think it was deliberate, but I think it was fake news.
But that's
I
what
think
fake news means.
The
when it's
Dow
deliberate.
dropped 350 points after it happened. There are real-life ramifications.
That might have had something to do with Flynn and Mueller.
But I'm just saying, but it was fake news, and then the Dow dropped. There are real-life ramifications to this.
I think we
Let
have
me
to
just
be
say
heard.
one more thing. 71% of Alabama voters don't believe that they don't believe the news about Roy Moore being a child molester, no matter how many people have come out to say it. That is a complete and total distrust and lack of responsibility on the media's part. Let me tell you.
No, they distrust the women. That has nothing to do with the media.
No, they distrust the media's take on this. They think that it's the liberal media.
They just report what the women say.
But there's such a distrust in our journalists right now that they don't believe what they're saying, because when on election day, the day after, you have a bunch of people going on TV demanding impeachment the day after, you think, and I feel this way, that there is a liberal bias that doesn't matter what happens, that you just want to take down Trump no matter what happens and no matter what happens to the country.
Look, I think Megan is right. There's a bunch of double standards. But I'll tell you what one of the double standards I feel is. I think that if Hillary Clinton had done half of what Donald Trump has already done under a Republican Congress, the impeachment papers would already be cracking. I also think that, look, you know, we've got to be very careful and really thoughtful about the difference between fake news, real journalism. To me, fake news is when you make up a story about the Clintons running a sex ring out of the basement of a pizza shop that does not have a basement.
Yeah,
or when you make up a horrible conspiracy story and never even regret it and never apologize for it about the death of Seth Rich. Here, Brian Ross made a mistake. The network took action. He's accepted the action. Everybody's apologized, and everybody's admitting it's a mistake because there was no intent. Fake news is a catchphrase that Donald Trump is trying to use, I think, against real news that's inconvenient for him.
I agree
and we've
with
got to
that.
be really careful.
Yeah, we have to be very careful with that because, you know, and it is a term, I think, that Donald Trump coined, and I think he coined it because it's so convenient for him, and people are believing him. And I think we really need to remember that our right to a free press is not only in our Constitution, it is the bedrock of our democracy. When you don't have freedom of the press, you have places like China, like North Korea, like Vietnam, like Iran, like Cuba. And so, you know, those people that you're referring to that believe, you know, don't disbelieve the media, I hope that they really look very closely at what is coming out of this administration.
Freedom of the press is a right, but it's also a responsibility.
But if you go after every shiny ball with one source, again, I think the media the majority of the mainstream media is so hell-bent on taking Trump down. And again, if he has done something that he should be taken down and impeached, it will come out. I have faith that nothing stays a secret, especially in D.C. too long. But stop taking the bait and jumping, because trust me, President Trump was tweeting about this, that it was fake news. It gives ammo to whatever you think isn't real or is
a mistake
fake.
is a mistake.
But
I mean, the guy made a mistake.
I hope
and they've already admitted it. So what else can you do about it?
Because I'm trying to explain to you that people like myself included, I say liberal media bias when I'm talking about politics all the time. I talk about left-wing media. I think there is an innate misunderstanding of the anger and frustration against...
Do you think there's a bias at Fox also?
Oh, yes, of course.
Oh, so it's not just liberal
But I
media
hope
bias.
some of the people
the
Megan's
fact that-
talking about that see this as fake news find comfort in the execution of consequences. Because one thing we say is, you know, oftentimes we watch the president do this and there's no consequence. And then he says there's this media that's left-leaning and biased. This is what happens in journalism when you get it wrong, whether it's fired or suspension without pay. There are consequences for getting it wrong.
That's true.
And that's why I think hopefully people find comfort in that, you know.
And I will say that Fox News exists because so many people feel like they're never allowed to have any conservative beliefs spoken on television on any other network. I'm not saying it's necessarily right, but I'm saying Fox News is #1 in cable for a reason, and there's a lot of people
Look,
that
we're
watch
very
it.
polarized as a nation. We all want to watch things, listen to things, read things that we agree with. And a lot of times that's regardless of whether they're true or not. I think we have a personal responsibilities as consumers of news to verify, to search for credible sources, to search for credible journalists, follow them and read them.
And to check sources that don't go with your belief system. That's something, because it'll give you a more full picture if you don't stay in your echo chamber.
And have diverse friends, by the way.
And have healthy debate.
You know what, I'm not so,
I want to find out one
I'm not
thing,
so
though.
sure I want him to succeed at destroying the environment, playing chicken with Kim Jong-un. I'm not so I don't want him to succeed at a lot of things. As you say, we want our president to succeed. No, I don't.
Well, I didn't expect you not to admit that.
I don't.
Well,
Do you? He gets out of the Paris Accords. He
I thought that
antagonizes
Obama
everybody
knew
all over the
the
world.
things that I thought Obama did wrong and the ramifications that I think my future grandchildren will feel. I still, at the end of the day, I love America. I'm a true patriot. I want Trump to succeed. I want Obama to succeed. I want America to continue.
I love America. It's him I can't
greatest.
stand. We'll be right back with more Hot Topics.